So the idea about this one kind of came to a recent claim I had, or number of claims, but one was recently where a boat came into Palma with a carbon fiber mast, like while in the boatyard in Olbia, fully accessed, repaired it all. It took a long time. Finally back in the water, started sailing, wanted to take part in the arc across the Atlantic, did a final rig check here on the island, and they found some cracks on the masthead. And it turned out that all the inspection done in Italy, including ultrasound, did not reveal all the damages to the mast. They had to unstep the mast, open up the mast top, repair the mast top here. Another, I think it was 1,000 euros of damages to the mast top. The guy lost his window to sail across to the Caribbean. Was not very happy, obviously. So when we kind of discussed that maybe it would be good to talk here, that was one of the options, which then I chose to say. So for all of us, when we go, the first assessment is obviously going aloft, looking at the damages, looking for visible damages. Everyone who knows a little about lightning knows that the area we're looking at is where it went in and where it came out. So you're trying to find at least two visual signs. What happened, provided you can be certain that it was a direct strike. Sometimes it is just a over voltage in the air, but that should be kind of the first assessment. And the first assessment then should lead to potentially other steps. Now, some big companies, mainly Southern Spars / Holzbars,
saying that normally you get two.
Yeah, at least.
I've seen a few where there was an entry. Is this normal, or would there always be something?
Normally they always something, in my experience, but maybe you will see later what I mean, because this is exactly where I'm trying to get at. What some might not know is that, for example, Southern Spars and also Holzbars nowadays, when they deliver a mast, they give the boat a full booklet of the rig. And one of the items it says, if you got hit by lightning, we want a full inspection of the rig on the ground. They do not recommend anymore to do it aloft. The reason is pretty much this. This was a mast of a 112-foot boat. It got hit in the Marquesas Islands. I got inspected in Panama. I went up the rig. The owner was on board in the midst of his little cruise. And it's literally those three things which I found. So you have the air tunnel, which on this particular boat ends up in a socket and then goes into the mast top and is connected internally to the down cable coming out the bottom. A meter below that, you had side. On one side, it was kind of small. On the other side, a little bit bigger. Later, we found out it was helicoils in the laminate. Nothing else could be seen. And as a result, I put in my report, discharge, only minor. Everything seemed to be going down the conductor, a little bit of an overcharge on the top. I assumed that it had apparently rained like hell that day, that that created kind of an exterior, conductor down into the water, and that probably the discharge went down this way. Nevertheless, we asked, the boat was still under warranty at the time. We asked the guys from Rig Pro to also go to Panama and inspect the EC6 cables. They found nothing wrong with them, but each one of us had a little bit of feeling there might be more. So we asked the boat to go to Guadeloupe, which is one of the very few places in the Caribbean where they actually can unstep mast this size. This one was close to 50 meter, and which kind of had an infrastructure to deal with potential issues. We put it on the ground, and as you can see, the tip of the air terminal showed signs of the strike. Not that boat which you see there, just so you know. Yeah, from there we decided, okay, let's evaluate further. So I did an ultrasound, and pretty much this is what we came to. So the aluminium air terminal had the signs of soldering. Where the air terminal entered, there was this blowout, which seemed just to be superficial, and we were not really concerned. Stainless steel grab screw there as well was affected, and there were these two, which I showed you before, these two little damages, one either side, and that's it. No signs on the bottom. Boy said no signs on the rigging. At that point, we were all quite happy. Started grinding them open. It was literally myself and a structural engineer from Southern Spas, because the laminator in Guadeloupe was of the opinion that he would only laminate and not grind. So he gave us the equipment, said, you can do it, I'm not doing it. But I had the okay from underwriters to go ahead and find out, and the structural engineer was there, so we said, well, we want to know the full picture, let's go ahead. Helical was, so it's about 12 plies into the laminate, and we found the helical that is actually was holding the conductor for the lightning cable on the inside. Not certain if it was just an coincidence or if something went down and then out there, can't say. But at that point, we were still pretty confident that that was it. And then we looked closer at the drawings, and we realized, okay, this air terminal ends in a GRP socket on the inside of the mast. And the crane, the structure of the masthead crane is on the inside, and this is laminated onto the inside. So we thought, okay, let's pull the pins. And I think you have got two samples there, which, yeah, passing around. The result of the pins was looking like this. So we realized, okay, if the pins have got this kind of weld lines, and you see they're not just superficial, they're actually quite going even like, okay,
there. Welding
something internally is going massively wrong. Outside, absolutely perfect, nothing. So the next step was for us then to grab an endoscope and try to see if we could see anything inside. And we saw two things. We saw this carbon fiber being blown up, and the bottom of the air terminal showed marks as well. So, yeah.
Ultrasounded from the outside. And in your ultrasound, you were unable to detect this.
Correct.
Why is that?
Well, because you have to see where this is. So you've got the mast wall, which, let's make it easy, is a round item. When you have the mast crane, that is a flat panel internally. There is space in between the outer area and the mast crane.
Is this on the crane?
This is on the crane.
Okay.
So your mast wall, your mast wall roughly here. You have got no way of getting to it. What you in fact see here, this is the conductor going down into the mast tube of the air terminal.
Okay.
And what the problem was later was that Southern Spas had made a mistake. They had thought down the line of how to avoid damages by having an aluminium air terminal, which then was supposed to go into the top of the mast, isolated with GRP tube and GRP isolator. The first problem they did, they created this metal plate on the top, and with this they created a chance to arc over into the carbon fiber. That was the first damage you saw. The second one was that the GRP inside holding the air terminal wasn't going all the way down to the bottom. It stopped here. So this part was hanging freely inside the mast tube, surrounded by carbon fiber. The lightning reached that point, it had decided to go into the mast and not down the cable. And ultimately what we did, we drilled a few holes into the side of the mast, which there's another one of the cutouts, which actually shows how nice the mast laminate is and it's not damaged. But on the inside, the carbon fiber was badly scorched, delaminated, blown out, as you can see there. So we sent a laminator from Palma to spend 4 months in the Caribbean and repair the mast, the top. So they cut open this piece and then made a new seat plate, cut the old one out, bond a new one in, laminated in all through this opening. And then they had to rebuild this, which actually is the hardest part because this piece is the joint of the two halves. And in order to have the same type of stiffness, you have to recreate the same kind of joint while laminating it. So before we drilled these holes, although I was there with the senior structural engineer from Southern, he called back to Southern, told them what we had found by endoscope and says, are you okay if we drilled some holes in the side at the joint in order to inspect it internally? And only once we got the okay from Southern, we said, okay, you can go ahead and do that.
Everyone's got to be
Every time it's different. The point is there is just to show is like, for us it was a wake-up call. Before, I have to admit, I didn't really thought about pulling the pins. And at that point, when we saw them, it was like, oops, we better start doing that. And in fact, this was another one. So this one was 21 in France, again around 111 foot. Again, brand new, got hit in Gorgala. These were the two pictures I first received from the crew. That is actually what you see up there is the BNG wind vane, well, what is left of it. And this was a picture, it's hard to see maybe, but this is the mast foot and the guy has got a black finger by just going over the mast foot. Is that he wanted to go ahead and got Italian riggers and ultrasound specialists to check the mast in situ. And again, the problem was the mast was under warranty from Southern Holzbars. They had in their rule book the statement that the mast had to be unstepped. So from an insurance point, I kind of made very clear that I was not really convinced that an ultrasound standing up would provide me with much results. And I asked them to please verify before they send someone up to see if it was really money well spent or if it was just, in a way, a waste of time, material, and potentially wrong results. In fact, the results stated the following: paint cracking, no delamination. That was it. That was the result of the ultrasound. The bottom of the mast was black. No comment about any other signs of entry, exit whatsoever. That was it. And in fact, the riggers wanted to charge me 800 euros to make an interpretation of the NDT report, which I said would not pay, because it's like, what kind of interpretation do you need for this? So again, we decided to bring it down. This was the air terminal. Clearly showed that it wasn't just the BNG which got hit, but it actually went into the air terminal. Again, this little barrier was sitting on. Yes.
Sorry, what's an air terminal?
Air terminal is the lightning rod you have got sitting on top of the mast. That's what they refer to as air terminal. Generally speaking, you can have them out of different materials. Southern Holzbars, they always go for an aluminium one, which is, according to the American ABYC, the best way of doing it. Offshore used to use a carbon fiber rod with a stainless steel tip on the top. Problem with that was the carbon fiber, which was attached to the side of the mast, was acting actually as a conductor as well and bringing it straight into the side of the mast. So on offshore rigs, you used to just have a nice blowout on the side of the mast. Signs of arcing, so it went into another part, right? And in fact, when we then removed the plate of the BNG wand and the hardware on the top of the mast, this is what the top of the mast looked like. It looks bad. None of it was really critical.
But that's like
it's filler, and it was superficial because you've got helicoils again in there. You see, it's literally every time. So that's where it goes in. Around there was always a delamination. But being just the plate on the top of the mast, it generally doesn't give any issue. It's also, if you need to look in the top of the mast, best to go through there, drill a hole in there, and you can fairly easily repair it. Yeah.
The lightning strike has caused the helicoils to expand and then contract, therefore cracking the filler around it, maybe causing delamination. Or are they still using helicoils?
They will continue using helicoils. It's the only way really to fix something to it. But it's not so much that the helical changes, it is the different materials which create the problem. You have got generally in carbon fiber, you've got carbon fiber which is conductive, and you've got the resin which is not conductive. So there lies the problem within that material, and therefore you have then the delaminations between the various layers. If you then have got a helical metallic one, again, you get arcing between them. Whenever you have an arc, you have a problem.
So, okay, so basically you're saying that because the resin is non-conductive.
No, you're getting an arc between different materials. For example, comes in a moment, the EC6 carbon fiber rigging is highly conductive for lightning. And Southern Spars has done a lot of testing to see how to improve their rigging with lightning. They went to a lab in Madrid and done massive amount of testing where they've blown the things up and tried everything to improve it. They came up to the conclusion that the actual strands are never damaged along the way. So once the lightning goes into the carbon fiber, it's fine until it comes out the other end. The problem is then their terminals of the rigging is normally titanium, and you get arcing between the carbon fiber and the titanium where it jumps. And that's where you get the so-called blowouts like this, just on a smaller nature, damaging the outer strands of the carbon fiber. And that then is a problem, because then you have to replace all the rigging. So what they came up with on the rigging side is that they're creating now on all the new ones, they've got a piece of copper, which is around the carbon fiber at the bottom piece. So what happens is the current travels down the carbon fiber, which then becomes in contact with the copper being highly conductive and in close contact, provides no chance of arcing over into that material, and then it arcs between the copper and the titanium. It destroys the copper, but leaves the carbon fiber intact. So all you do is you replace that piece of copper around the bottom, and you're good to go.
Felix. I haven't seen that before.
What, the EC6 on the rigging? That is fairly new. You normally don't see it because it's underneath the copper.
Okay.
That is only recently. They have. This was one of their first boats, I think, where they installed it. But talking of other damages, so this is the partner. So this rig actually, rather than having something like spar tight around it, they're using a solid band which is bolted on. Well, from one of the bolts, it jumped into the carbon fiber deck and created big delamination on the carbon fiber deck.
That's arcing again.
Arcing from this bolt into here. So that was the next step. Then you're down on the bottom, looking at the mast foot out of aluminium. Arcs there as well, and if you look at the bolts, there the foot was into the carbon fiber hull. All of them were looking at this. Well, you see this bolt here? This bolt goes into here, into area.
So it's
Holding this.
on a step.
There were other ones actually on the opposite side, they were looking the same. It was clear that, you know, the whole mast tube was acting as a conductor. I mean, it wasn't just a little bit. The mast tube was actually looking, apart from that, extremely good. The main problem, and this is where we go to now, was the EC6. The EC6 carbon fiber standing rigging. Because I don't know how well you see on these pictures, but So these are the individual carbon fiber strands. And this is the titanium fitting. And around here, around where you see it a little bit, were blown out. Each individual strand.
Every strand that was in contact with the titanium.
It's not really in contact. There's a few millimeters spacing at that stage.
Really, close.
But it gives you the chance to arc over. And if you have 300 strands of carbon fiber down on the bottom, and the entire outer perimeter was damaged, and they give normally 10% allowance to 15% allowance of what is allowed to be damaged. Every outer strand of the perimeter goes way over the allowance. Looking at 180,000 euros of new rigging.
It's impressive because, I mean, titanium is pretty tough.
Now the titanium was not damaged. Yeah, this is where the, I think it's mainly the, so this is what you see here, still the cover. And what you see here, kind of that gap, that's where normally the cover is kind of tucked in.
Okay.
But along this edge, the carbon fiber, and along here, if you want, look at this screen where you see it better. The carbon, the each individual strand was literally blown out. I think we went way too quick.
What is the white, like green? Like,
That's like the glue. That's like the epoxy. The whole point behind this is really that trying to show that lightning, the potential of being something really quite dramatic and costly is there. You might be luckier. We've just had a hit last week, and the first assessment was it's a real disaster, and it sounds now like it is actually just a minor one with high charge in the air. They're shooting up like this.
Really? Particular parts of the world more prevalent?
Oh yeah, you've got certain areas, Panama, Marquesas, other areas such as Singapore. If you go to Singapore with a boat, you can just make certain you're gonna get hit.
The Tyrrhenium Sea.
Well, actually, Palma is so far not too bad in comparison.
I got them. So, we need.
Got in Palma at least 3 boats which got hit twice or 3 times, and you sometimes feel sorry for them because they get, how on earth can it happen again, you know? And
Lightning never strikes time.
well, I remember one actually was a swan by the name of Constanta. They got hit and really bad. The mast was throwaway. They got a new mast. They had all new electronics, everything replaced. They went into the bar in Real Club Nautica to celebrate that they finally finished. And there was a lightning happening outside, and one of the guys said, "We just got hit," and they did.
I had to look at the swan.
Yeah.
The reason that it is.
I haven't seen key rams destroyed. I know of key rams where they claimed they were associated, but I did see various ones, various damages. The worst one was actually also a Swan 80 being hit in Athens. The entire rudder had blowouts and was a throwaway. The bow thruster, I first had a diver down to look at it. And he was like, I think everything is good. The only thing I don't understand is why they don't have anything over the bow thruster. I was like, what do you mean? I was like, he showed me a picture and you could see that the cover plate was gone, everything, the bow thruster was in the open. And I was like, oh, it's not supposed to be like that.
The strange one about this is the Mars rounds were taken. No evidence on the ram that the morning after the rudder was dropped, it was just possible dropping.
No, I mean, lightning can affect all kinds of things. What I've seen the most is that if it goes down either head stays or back stays, that then it tries to find its way out, which generally the easiest is either through the steering or through the bow thruster. So another problem with a lot of these built boats is that the lightning conductor is connected to a general grounding plate, which also got all the nav gear attached to it, and the negative side and everything all on that one piece. So
I had an insurance case where it was a race. Some of the instruments were working. All the instruments because everyone said within 6 months. But for the insurance claim, couldn't give them the money back for the.
well, I mean, the problem is every insurance is different. Generally speaking, my experience is that nowadays most insurance companies are happy to keep a claim open for an extended period if it's lightning. I have to say, I just got it now with this case again in Fort Lauderdale. They're coming back here, but the first guy who looked at it, electronics, make a comment and says, we need to replace all the BNGs because no one can guarantee. And even though everything is still working, it might, well, it doesn't work like that. So the point is you say, okay, we check everything, replace what is broken, we keep the claim open, you use it. If that thing is still working in half a year time, it's fine. It's not gonna fail in a year's time because of the lightning.
This was the trouble is that it was a chartered race boat. And so the owner couldn't charter the boat. The instruments while the boat was being chartered would fail. So he had to replace.
That possibility of failure you always have. I mean, that's what I try to tell them. It's like, look, replacing everything just because it could fail, you can argue that with everything. If I buy a washing machine today, in 2 years' time, it might fail, maybe not. I can't say. Eventually it will fail. So just saying because it was hit by lightning, replace everything. Insurance premiums are anyway so high nowadays that, and people are complaining, part of it is that, and the lightning ratio is shooting up.
I did a lot of research. That nearly every instrument will fail after 6 months. It's almost guaranteed.
Is it? I mean, from all the ones we have done, and we're working with a number of good. I'm not normally touching the electronics. For that, we've got specialists. It tends to be that you fix the things which are broken, you check it all, you give the half year, but have never had a time that after 2 months of use. I mean, we're not talking about having the thing sitting here in the marina and no one is switching it on, but actually of use, that after that it failed.
So, Felix,
Yeah.
if we're going to be checking a sailing boat in terms of correct bonding, would be to check bonding from the mast, the correct bonding to a keel bolt, or to ascertain where it goes to. If it's
speaking, they tend to get away from the idea of putting it to keel bolts. At least depends always which boat you're looking at. I mean, one of the things which I have seen on a number of times with GOP boats is that GOP boats, they're now put in a carbon fiber rig, they've got rod rigging, they put a lightning rod on the top, the cable down. But for example, the chain plates, which are composite, carbon composite, laminated onto the inside of a GOP hull, are not connected to a grounding plate or something like that. And then the result is that you've got pinholes in the bottom of a GOP boat, and you go like, well, why on earth do I have all these little craters here? Well, because it had to go somewhere, and it found its way through the GOP, which is acting as an isolator back into the water. Going to the keel bolt has been done often in the past, but actually nowadays most people of the lightning recommend to have a dedicated, let's say, sintered bronze plate. Some use a stainless steel plate dedicated to lightning, where you've got the conductor coming from the top of the mast as well as from the chain plates.
so
to guard.
we as surveyors at least verify that there's some type of protection there.
No, I mean, the point is when it comes into details, I can only speak now, for example, on behalf of Pantanius, where they say, if you have a functioning lightning conductor, you, depending on the policy, you either have no access at all or just a standard one. If you have no lightning system functioning on, you pay double your access. So on a big boat, that can get very expensive very quickly. Now, obviously, the point is what is working, what is not. This boat, which came here, which I initially mentioned, where the guy went back in the water, sailed for a little while, and then they found more damage, was an interesting case because it had a lightning system, but it was sitting in Olbia in the boatyard, and no one had ever considered to put a cable from the plate down to the ground. And as a result, the damage was more. I remember also Ghost Vitas built. They got hit sitting on a cargo ship, and they were not grounded, and the damage was excessive, not just to the own boat, but to all the neighboring boats, because it jumped from their hull into all the little sports fishermen and what have you sitting around on the deck of the cargo ship. So in the end, that was the shipping insurance had to pay for it. And it was not just one boat heavily damaged, 5, because of one lightning strike.
So when we supervise loading onto a ship, we should be asking about whether lightning conductors.
I would recommend that.
Being grounded.
Yeah. No, on the hard as well. It should be.
In your previous wrote that one of the found some blank at the bottom of the mast. How was that? What was that?
That was soot, which was sitting on the master.
Why?
Because it was all the blowouts. I mean, you've got a huge.
Something burning.
Yeah. Well, it was just arcing, creating enough of that. But for me, that was a point where I said, how on earth can you have surveyors, or in this case, it was riggers and ultrasound people, coming back saying, everything is perfect, we just got a little bit, the guys can go sailing, everyone is happy. And you're like, guys, you've got a black finger there, something has gone wrong, you know. And initially the captain was like, and the owner said, no, we are happy with that, we want to continue. Only when then Southern says, okay, you will have no warranty, everything is void from now onwards, they said, okay, well then let's do that. Yeah.
Just to say.
There's both ISO and there's ABYC. Yeah, the tricky bit is like there are various inventions also. I mean, you've got different concepts. Used to have the old hold spas, they used to have brushes. The idea was they had the dissipator to act as not creating a streamer between the lightning and the mast. The problem with those was that it has proven that streamers exist between items which are on the ground, solid, and are not moving. But on a moving mast, when there's nothing around it nearly as tall, is very doubtful if there is really a streamer needed to get that contact. And in fact, I know various masts which have got these brushes and they got hit nevertheless. And then there is no proper conductor to bring the current down. So generally speaking, then you have got more damage. Let's face it, I don't think there is one system which works as avoiding a lightning strike. The thing is, what you have is by having a proper conductor and a proper cable and a proper grounding plate, a chance to at least limit the extent of damage you have to the boat, to the electronics, to potentially you on board. I mean, I personally got friends who sailed and got hit while sailing, and you know, they were actually quite hurt for a few days and not being able to use their hands properly and limbs, and because they're sitting there and getting actually arcs. So there is I got a ball. In fact, it's probably here at the boat show. Tends to be as a way of the more advanced way of these lightning protection systems, where it says you avoid the streamer. Problem with that is most people don't like to have a few kilos up 2 meters above the mast trying to do something which is not guaranteed. Again, I know a couple of boats which had it and got hit. So it is very tricky. It is very tricky. But I think in the end, if you go with people such as Southern Spas and Future, which have done the testing and which can prove why they recommend certain cables, you're pretty safe. Obviously, they also got the client vicious. And I know of a recently finished mast from Hold Spas where the buyer insisted to save weight, and he insisted to have, yes, an air terminal, but please then connect it to the sail track until just before deck, and then from there another cable down. So that sail track is attached to the mast with I don't know how many screws.
Yeah.
And not have anything because, you know, they told him very clearly they would not recommend, they would not give him any warranty if he were hit. They would refuse anything. It was purely up to him. But sure.
Planes get struck by lightning.
Mm-hmm. Don't look good afterwards. At least the ones out of carbon, no?
But planes can, and they sometimes have holes put in them.
I mean, two types of planes nowadays. We've got aluminium, which in itself works as a Faraday cage. So whatever is inside is protected. More modern planes, such as the A350 or the Dreamliner, are carbon fiber. But what they do is they have a copper mesh, which is laminated to the outermost layer. So generally speaking, if they get hit, that copper mesh acts as a cage, protecting not just the electronics, but obviously also the laminar, because you don't want a big hole in the top of the you know, 10,000 meters high. It gets pretty cold pretty quick. So, but when they do get hit, I can show you some pictures of a Dreamliner where it looks like after they got hit, and it's not pretty. So.
In bits.
Felix, thank you.